Most Christians think you have to choose, either chase peace and stay broke, or chase money and lose your soul. But what if Solomon proved that was a lie? What if the formula for both wealth and inner peace has been hidden in plain sight, between the lines of Scripture, ignored by churches and misunderstood by entrepreneurs? The man who built a temple, led a nation, and became the richest king in history didn't hustle, compromise, or burn out. He followed a divine blueprint that most believers today overlook. And the shocking truth? He didn't even ask for money. Yet he ended up wealthier than kings who did. This isn't about magic prayers or prosperity cliches. It's about strategy backed by Scripture, timeless wisdom that still works in a digital economy. If you've been grinding, praying, and still feeling stuck, what you're about to learn could be the pivot point your finances and your faith have been waiting for. Because Solomon's formula wasn't just for his generation. It was written to unlock yours. The day Solomon didn't ask for money and still got rich. When Solomon had the chance to ask God for anything, he didn't ask for gold, fame, or even long life. He asked for wisdom. That one decision became the cornerstone of his entire fortune. The irony? Most people today ask for what Solomon intentionally left out. But Solomon understood something deeper. True wealth begins within. He knew that asking for the right thing would attract everything else in due time. It's not that Solomon didn't value money. It's that he knew money was a result, not a root. His prayer in 1 Kings 3:9 wasn't just humble, it was strategic. Give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people. He was already thinking like a Christian business leader, focusing on responsibility over riches. And God, pleased by this, responded by giving him not only wisdom, but both riches and honor. This is where most godly business owners get it backwards. They hustle to make money, but skip the prayer that aligns their purpose. Solomon's request positioned him for supernatural acceleration. Instead of grinding for decades, he received in moments what others couldn't build in a lifetime. Why? Because heaven funds alignment, not ambition. Wisdom opened doors that wealth alone never could. So what would happen if today's entrepreneurs flipped the question like Solomon did? What if instead of chasing money, they asked for understanding, discernment, and strategy? The modern marketplace is flooded with noise, but divine clarity is still rare and deeply valuable. Solomon didn't chase wealth. He chased the heart of God, and wealth chased him. And that brings us to a different kind of currency entirely. How wisdom became the currency that attracted wealth. Solomon's entire empire was built on a currency that doesn't show up on Wall Street tickers. Wisdom. Before he had vaults of gold or fleets of ships, he had insight. Proverbs 3:13-16 says, "Blessed is the one who finds wisdom, for she is more profitable than silver and yields better returns than gold." That's not poetry. That's financial strategy straight from heaven's economy. Wisdom was Solomon's seed. Wealth was the harvest. Every godly business starts with invisible capital. While the world invests in branding, Solomon invested in understanding. He studied nature, human behavior, law, and leadership. That's why leaders of nations traveled just to hear him speak. He had answers Google couldn't give. Today we've traded divine wisdom for quick hacks and digital trends. But wisdom still holds its value, and Solomon proved it can build global influence. Think about this practically. The Christian entrepreneur who reads the book of Proverbs daily is gaining more long-term edge than someone just studying market analytics. Sure, data helps, but divine wisdom discerns timing, ethics, and impact. It teaches when to scale, when to wait, and when to pivot. In a world chasing speed, wisdom protects your peace and multiplies your profits. You want to make money in 2025? Start mining the word like Solomon mined truth. Read Proverbs like it's your business mentor. Pair it with modern books like The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. But filter everything through the lens of kingdom values. Because once wisdom becomes your foundation, you'll start seeing results that money alone could never buy. And speaking of results that can't be bought, why inner peace is more profitable than hustle. Solomon had access to the kind of wealth that could fund armies, construct temples, and dazzle queens. Yet in Ecclesiastes, he pulls back the curtain. Better one handful with tranquility than two handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. Ecclesiastes 4:6. That's not just philosophy, it's economic intelligence. Peace protects what hustle destroys. While the world burns out to make money, Solomon taught us how to keep it without losing our soul. A Christian business built on anxiety won't last. You can't outrun burnout no matter how many sales funnels you automate. Solomon's peace didn't come from avoiding work. It came from working within purpose. He understood that alignment with God brings rest even in the midst of responsibility. That's why he could rule a nation, write books, oversee construction projects, and still reflect deeply. Inner peace was his most scalable asset. Modern entrepreneurs often brag about the grind, but Solomon would have seen that as foolishness. He didn't grind, he governed. He delegated, prioritized, and preserved space to think, pray, and listen. That mental margin is where most financial breakthroughs are born. Some of the best business strategies aren't written in office whiteboards, but in the quiet spaces where your heart meets God's voice. Want to make more money and have a lasting impact? Chase peace, not pressure. That means creating rhythms of Sabbath, investing in your health, protecting your time with family. Solomon's formula wasn't speed, it was sustainability. Because once you anchor your soul, you can steward more without being swallowed by it. And when your peace is intact, your decisions become sharper. And that leads us to something else Solomon practiced every single day. Solomon's daily practice that multiplied his influence. While Solomon was known for his wisdom, it didn't come by accident or osmosis. His influence was the fruit of daily discipline. Proverbs 8:34 reveals the pattern. Blessed are those who listen to me, watching daily at my doors, waiting at my doorway. Solomon built a routine of seeking before strategizing. Every Christian business leader today needs a practice like this. Daily time in the Word before decisions, meetings, or money moves. Solomon didn't start his day with spreadsheets. He started with sacred space. That's why he didn't just build wealth, he built people. His Proverbs are proof that he observed life, reflected deeply, and then translated wisdom into practical advice. That same pattern works today. Imagine what would shift if, instead of checking emails first, entrepreneurs opened Proverbs and asked, "Lord, what's the principle I need today?" A godly business must be rooted in divine rhythm. Solomon journaled, mentored, studied, prayed. These weren't occasional habits, they were rituals. That's how he grew capacity to govern a vast empire. Want to scale your company or ministry? Build a daily discipline that's richer than hustle culture. Read one proverb a day, write 3 reflections, and set one actionable goal aligned with what you read. Consistency compounds. Solomon didn't pray for random blessings. He cultivated structured wisdom. That's how he became more than a king. He became a standard. People followed him not just because of his title, but because of his thinking. And if you want to elevate your impact in 2025, your daily practice matters more than your public image. That brings us to a surprising truth about his legacy most people overlook: the hidden role of godly business. In Solomon's legacy, Solomon wasn't just a king, he was a strategist, an economist, and a builder of systems. Many forget that much of his wealth didn't come from war or inheritance, but from structured commerce. In 1 Kings 10, we learn of his trading fleets, international alliances, and resource management. That's godly business in action. Enterprise fueled by divine wisdom. His influence wasn't just spiritual, it was economic. And that wasn't a coincidence. Christian business is often treated like a secular activity, separate from sacred calling. But Solomon blurred that line beautifully. He showed that managing resources, expanding networks, and negotiating wisely can all be forms of worship when done under God's guidance. His enterprises created jobs, funded the temple, and expanded Israel's prosperity. That's what a godly business does. It blesses others while honoring heaven. Solomon's trade agreements with Hiram of Tyre, his gold shipments from Ophir, and his imports of horses and chariots were calculated moves that shaped geopolitical power. He wasn't just managing money, he was shaping culture. Entrepreneurs today must think the same way. Your business isn't just about profit, it's about influence, legacy, and kingdom impact. God doesn't just anoint pulpits, he anoints profit models with purpose. If you've been afraid to scale your business because you think it's too worldly, remember Solomon. His business acumen was part of his ministry. His legacy teaches us that holy ambition and heavenly impact can coexist. And once you understand that, you'll realize Solomon would have done something radically specific if he lived in 2025. And it's exactly what we'll uncover next. What Solomon would do first in 2025 to make money. If Solomon woke up in 2025, he wouldn't waste time scrolling or speculating. He'd start by identifying where wisdom is scarce and value is needed. That's how he operated in ancient Israel, and that's how he'd dominate today's economy. He'd likely invest in education platforms, intellectual property, strategic partnerships, anything that multiplies insight. Because in a digital world, knowledge is the new land and ideas are the new gold. He wouldn't chase trends, he'd create systems. Solomon knew that wealth is never built on reaction but on revelation. So in today's landscape, he'd prioritize infrastructure that sustains income beyond himself. Online courses, licensing models, content libraries, SaaS for Christian business leaders. Passive income wasn't coined in his day, but his methods were rooted in it. Build once, let it work for you forever. Imagine Solomon launching a faith-based leadership accelerator. He'd mentor CEOs, publish wisdom, and launch ventures that solve societal problems. He'd combine spiritual clarity with economic strategy and call it ministry. That's the mindset of a godly business builder. Monetize mission without compromising values. And he'd do it unapologetically. Because he knew the kingdom that needed more than good intentions. It needed resources. So what should a modern believer do? Stop waiting for a calling to show up in a dream. Look at your skills, your experience, your burdens, and build something with structure. Solomon didn't ask what he felt like doing. He asked what would serve his people and honor his God. That's where divine entrepreneurship begins. But sadly, most Christians are still stuck in one major mindset trap that Solomon exposed long ago. Why most Christians misunderstand prosperity. Many believers today think prosperity is either a divine jackpot or a worldly distraction. But Solomon reveals a different picture, one where prosperity is a tool, not a trophy. In Proverbs 10:22, he writes, "The blessing of the Lord brings wealth, without painful toil for it." That's not a prosperity gospel, that's biblical economics. True prosperity isn't about luxury, it's about capacity to fulfill purpose with peace. Solomon never apologized for his wealth because he understood its assignment. The gold wasn't for flaunting, it was for building. He used resources to construct the temple, provide stability to Israel, and preserve wisdom for future generations. That's the mindset of a godly business. Wealth is not the goal, it's the fuel. The problem is, many Christians confuse greed with growth and think that poverty is somehow more spiritual. This distortion creates believers who pray for impact but reject the very resources needed to produce it. Solomon would call that foolishness. In his writings, he often contrasts the wise and the fool, not based on income, but based on stewardship. That means it's possible to be poor and selfish, or wealthy and generous. The issue isn't how much you have, it's what you do with what you have. If Christians saw money the way Solomon did, as a tool in the hands of the righteous, the kingdom would expand faster than any nonprofit model. Prosperity isn't the opposite of holiness, it's the companion of wisdom. But that only works when you invest like Solomon, not just financially, but in something far more strategic and overlooked. Solomon's real investment strategy, and it wasn't gold. People love to talk about Solomon's gold, but that wasn't his most powerful asset. His real investment was people, from scribes to craftsmen, from traders to temple priests. He knew how to identify, equip, and empower talent. Ecclesiastes 4:9 says, "Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor." That's not just relational advice, it's a business model. Solomon invested in teams, not just treasures. In modern terms, Solomon would have built a leadership pipeline. He wouldn't hoard knowledge, he'd multiply it. Today's Christian business leaders can follow suit by mentoring others, hiring based on character and calling, and creating systems that don't depend solely on themselves. That's what makes a business scalable, sustainable, and spiritual. You're not just growing income, you're growing impact through people. Too many entrepreneurs think scaling means buying ads or getting investors. Solomon scaled by cultivating loyalty, training the right people, and building structures that lasted beyond his lifetime. That's how legacies are built. If you want your godly business to outlive you, stop chasing followers and start raising up co-laborers. Invest in your team, your clients, and your successors. That's kingdom multiplication. Even Jesus followed this model. He invested in 12. Solomon did it with thousands. And if you want to make money without losing your mission, you'll need to do it too. Because long before stocks and crypto, the most valuable investment on earth has always been people. And when you learn how Solomon managed both influence and rest, you'll understand how he avoided a trap that ruins most visionaries. How Solomon avoided burnout while managing an empire. It's hard to imagine leading a nation, building infrastructure, writing thousands of proverbs, and still having time to reflect. Yet Solomon did. Unlike today's always-on culture, he mastered rhythm. Ecclesiastes 3:1 teaches us there is a time for everything. He didn't live in frantic output mode. That's what saved him from burnout. His empire ran on wisdom, not adrenaline. Modern Christian business owners could learn a lot here. Burnout isn't proof of commitment, it's a sign of misalignment. Solomon made time for worship, silence, and strategic rest. That's not laziness. It's leadership. He didn't confuse motion with progress. That's why even his periods of stillness were productive. He knew that a rested mind sees what a tired one never will. Practically, this looks like building margin into your week. Block time for prayer. Schedule your Sabbath like it's your most important meeting. Turn your phone off during dinner. Solomon didn't have social media, but he did have distractions, and he still chose sacred over scattered. A godly business doesn't just grow fast, it grows healthy, and that starts with how you steward your own soul. If Solomon were mentoring CEOs today, he'd probably ask, "What are you doing that God didn't assign you?" Because that's usually where the exhaustion begins. He knew that an overloaded calendar often means an underprayed life, but when you learn to say no to the good and yes to the God-ordained, you create space for provision to meet purpose, and that's exactly what we'll unpack in the next insight. From temple to treasury, how purpose attracts provision. Solomon didn't build the temple to get rich, he built it to honor God. And ironically, that's what made the treasury overflow. His purpose preceded his provision. In 2 Chronicles 2:5, Solomon declares, "The temple I am going to build will be great, because our God is greater than all other gods." That wasn't ego, it was vision. Purpose became the magnet for wealth, favor, and lasting legacy. This is where many Christian entrepreneurs get stuck. They chase money and hope purpose follows. Solomon did the opposite. He anchored everything to calling, and the resources followed naturally. That's the secret behind every successful godly business. It's rooted in something bigger than products or platforms. It serves heaven first, and heaven funds the rest. Solomon's temple wasn't just a building, it was a statement. It said, "This kingdom exists to glorify God." What if your business did the same? What if your marketing, meetings, and metrics all aligned with kingdom values? That kind of clarity doesn't just attract clients, it attracts the right clients. It invites divine favor into your strategy. Provision accelerates when the vision is righteous and clear. So before you launch that next offer or scale that new funnel, ask, is this aligned with my purpose or just a distraction in disguise? Solomon teaches us that when purpose is in place, provision becomes a byproduct, not a battle. And just when you think he's shown you all his strategies, there's still one forgotten investment that sealed his legacy for generations. The forgotten investment. Solomon made that secured generational wealth. Among all of Solomon's legendary decisions, one investment often goes unnoticed. He invested in writing. That's right. His wisdom wasn't just spoken, it was documented. From Proverbs to Ecclesiastes to Song of Songs, Solomon left behind scrolls that became scripture. This wasn't just legacy, it was strategy. By writing, he multiplied his influence across generations. His wisdom outlived his reign. Think about that in today's terms. Christian business leaders spend fortunes on ads but neglect content that compounds. Solomon's scrolls are still producing fruit centuries later. What if your next blog, book, podcast, or course became an inheritance for your children's children? Writing isn't just communication, it's asset creation. And Solomon understood that immortal ideas often yield eternal returns. Imagine launching a godly business and documenting the process with devotionals, journals, business principles rooted in scripture. That's not just ministry, that's kingdom IP, intellectual property. Solomon's content became canon. Yours can become curriculum. And whether you're writing for a congregation or a customer, every word sown with purpose can outlive you and fund the future. Don't overlook this timeless investment. Start writing your story. Turn your breakthroughs into blueprints. Turn your wisdom into wealth. Solomon's fortune didn't die with him because he preserved it on paper. And now, as you reflect on everything you've just learned, it's time to tie it together with the one thing that makes all of this powerful and practical: a prayer to align your life with God's design. Now that you've seen how Solomon built wealth and kept his peace, what will you do with this blueprint? Will you keep working harder, hoping something clicks? Or will you finally start applying wisdom that's already been proven for centuries? Are you building a godly business that heaven can bless? Or just running a hustle with Christian labels? What would shift in your life if you stopped seeing money as the enemy and started managing it like a tool for kingdom impact? Let me ask you, what's one principle from Solomon's formula you can apply this week? What would happen if you traded anxiety for alignment? If you stopped chasing clients and started pursuing clarity? Write in the comments, "God, give me wisdom and prosperity," and watch how this powerful declaration begins to shift the course of your business and your finances from this day forward. If this message stirred your spirit, consider supporting our ministry through the link in the description. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a word that could change your finances, your business, and your future forever.